Brickhouse Brown. What can you say about Brickhouse Brown? I'm going to go ahead and post the Wikipedia link in the description. I know a lot of people appreciate facts and fact totems and, the history of the guy. I will tell you that I did read the Wikipedia, and the Wikipedia is not complete on Brickhouse Brown. He spent a lot of time in Dallas where he was very over. Things I didn't know. I didn't know that Brick was 4 years older than me. I didn't know that. Thing about Brickhouse Brown was this. He was a tough guy that never had to really show you he was a tough guy. He had an air about him that just kind of said, don't fuck with me and I won't fuck with you. He was a quiet guy until you got to know him. He was smart. He really knew how to handle his business both personally and professionally. Brick was cursed with the disease, in my opinion, the same disease that I have, addiction. That's the only thing, and those are the only things that held him back in the wrestling industry. Vince McMahon got a hold of Brickhouse Brown and Billy Joe Travis and got a look at them when they were young and when they first broke in, and loved them both as performers. They worked house shows and some TVs. They came in as extras, Brick did, early on in his career when he was considered green. And they ended up taking him off TV and putting him on the house shows to get better looks at him. And at the end of the day, his bad habits shot him in the foot. He was a young guy, and Vince told Brick that if he could overcome his demons, he could always come back. All he had to do was overcome his demons and give Vince McMahon a call. That's how this guy was. Looked like $1 million. Worked hard to get that body, but in the same token, I've never seen anything like it anywhere in my travels where a guy could maintain that body and not work out. I would see this guy up for 2 days partying, barely eating, looked like $1 million and ready to go when that bell rang. Things you don't know about Brick. Like I said, Brick knew how to handle his business. It wasn't easy for a black guy in the Mid-South Territory in '89 when I first met Brick. So like I said about the standoffishness, there was a guy that had disrespected Brick, and I'm not going to say the guy's name because he's currently not in a good spot in life and he doesn't need me to bury him for mistakes that he made 30 years ago. But there was something there that he disrespected Brick, and I don't even think this guy meant it. I just don't think this guy had the wherewithal to understand that he was being racist at the time, coming from another part of the country. At the end of the day, though, he disrespected Brick. So I paired up with this guy one day to run a town, and all he did that whole time that we were driving and the whole time in the locker room and the whole time driving back was talking about this great girl that he had just hooked up with. Brick, for whatever reason, wasn't on that town or at that town, but when he was talking about how great this girl was, when we pulled up, Brickhouse Brown was leaving her hotel room. And the message was sent. The other thing about Brick is this. He was much like a lot of the other old-timers in regards to me. I think everybody was really shocked and surprised that I was there in the locker room and working the towns at the USWA, given my size and the fact that I'd come from up north. When I was in the same locker room on the same roster with Brick, I saw him noticing me. I saw him looking at me from time to time, and like a smart kid, I kept my mouth shut and didn't speak until I was spoken to, outside of making sure that I greeted everybody and also said goodbye when those opportunities arose. So one day out of the blue, Brick was in the babyface locker room and he was turning heel. That night we were able to ride back, and that's when I first paired up with Sweet Daddy Falcone, Brickhouse Brown, and Brickhouse's friend and then manager Reggie B. Fine, so we got to ride back from that town together. So Brickhouse started the night in the Babyface locker room and then turned in a town near Memphis. And then he went into the heel locker room after he had done the turn. He just came up to me, and this is when he really ingratiated himself with me. He was laughing and laughing and laughing because that night I had worked with Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome was literally probably 150 pounds bigger than me. Nah, not that much. He was probably 75 pounds bigger than me and at least 6'4". He was 6'4" and probably 340, maybe 6'5", 320 to 340. And Brick couldn't believe that Mike was over there in the other locker room selling for me and saying, Rockin' Randy is going to blow out my spleen. Please, please go over there and ask him to lighten up. He's beating the shit out of me every night. And Brick laughed like hell and said, I can't believe that I just saw that dinosaur over there selling and asking me to ask Lil Rockin' Randy to lighten up on him. Well, at that point, that's when I garnered Brick's respect because Brick was a worker. Not only was he a worker, he was just a natural at this industry. But Brick knew that I had to do that to survive. Otherwise, Mike Awesome would have killed me out there and also killed me off. So we're the point I wasn't believable and couldn't be on that roster. So I was literally out there fighting for my spot every night for the 30 days that I was first, assigned to work with Awesome. But from that point on, I had garnered Brick's respect. And that's something that I really appreciated. Running the roads with Brick was outstanding. It was the funniest thing because Reggie B. Fine is a big guy. Brick wasn't a big guy, but Brick was a thick guy. And Sweet Daddy Falcone was another 6'5", 300-pounder. And we used to pair up and ride in Sweet Daddy's Chevy Sprint, which was hilarious because I think that car was a 3-cylinder. But I'll be damned with all that meat in that car if that car didn't handle the hills and was outstanding on gasoline. I think we were spending $3 a day in gas and then splitting the oil changes with Sweet Daddy every other week. The way it went is Brick sat in the driver's seat and me and Reggie crammed into the back seat of that little riding lawnmower. But it was great, and those are some of the best times that I've had in wrestling, learning so much just listening to Brick, and that was it. Listening to Brick. Listening to Brickhouse, who vowed that I should have came out with an electric guitar, and he told me to start doing that in 1989. I didn't blow him off. We just never had the time to do that because we were working 8 times a week. I remember this too. Brick, there was never any kind of weird racial type stuff in there. In our our friendship, our climate, I guess I'm going to use. It wasn't like that, When I got sober at 16, I got sober in rehab at Chicago Lakeshore Hospital, and that was my first real, integration because 70% of the people I was in treatment with fighting for my life were black, from different walks of life from the black community. I think Sweet Daddy was a little not taken off, but a little, it was new to him because he came from a really white part of Pennsylvania. Truth be known, Sweet Daddy and Brickhouse Brown, managed by Reggie B. Fine, was an outstanding tag team that really had legs and could have drawn anywhere. But it was a weird time. Brick was very adamant about a couple of things, and that's not getting fucked on his money at the time, and also not doing the job. He was very particular about how he was going to do the job or put somebody over because that's what heels do. That's what heels did. But he did not want to kill himself off in there coming out of a territory where there was, in that Mid-South area, a lot of prejudice at the time still. So he was very particular about that. And the other thing is that let's say we did a town and we were on a guarantee. If we were on a guarantee in 1989 for $350 a week, $340 would not do. It wasn't about the $10 to Brick. It was the principle of the thing. Now, the last thing I'll say about Brick is this, and this is a very valuable statement, and this is a non-racial statement. This is how it was. At the time, the Memphis side of the territory was predominantly black. Memphis, Tennessee, at the Mid-South Coliseum was our biggest night of the week. That was the town that the territory was built around. That is the town where the TV was. And you can go ahead and fact check me, but there was a lot of black wrestlers there since the prejudice days, the really prejudiced days. And I'm not saying that Jerry Jarrett was prejudiced, because he wasn't, at least not intentionally anyway. But that Memphis market would see through a weak black babyface and just not get behind him. Then it would end up goofing on the guy. And they just couldn't put a green guy in that spot because he couldn't keep their attention, and then it would end up blowing up on the individual and blowing up on the company. Brickhouse Brown filled that mold perfectly because of the fact that Brick was in no way, shape, or form a thug. He had a great creative brain. He actually, I would consider him, in a sense, with some of the things that he would do and say when we were driving, had the makings at that point, if he gave a shit about you, to be a tremendous agent and tell you how to get the most out of what you were doing. But the point is that he was a tried and true, no weakness, charismatic enigma that had the entire black wrestling fan in Memphis and the Memphis market. You know, there was nothing to see through, and his charisma was outstanding. The guy was just extremely likable, and when he came out of that shell and he trusted you on a personal front, he's a guy that always kept you laughing. Some of the things, again, that Wikipedia doesn't talk about is I know that Brick was part of some project that was going on in Little Rock, Arkansas, that had legs that never took off. And then also, when he was in world class, he also worked for Bill Watts in the UWF and the Revisit at the time. When you were on that roster, half the roster would go to Dallas on Saturdays every other week, and Brick was part of that too. Dallas, again, that was another area that you couldn't have a quote-unquote weak black baby face and draw with him. They'd see through that too. And Brick just foot that bill. It was an incredible waste of talent. If you guys can get a hold of some of those matches via YouTube or Daily Motion or even Vimeo, you'll see what I'm talking about. Brick was pretty innovative when it came to certain things, and I think that somewhere down the line, if he and Too Cold Scorpio could have worked together as a team for Vince McMahon when Scorpio was still in his prime, it would have really been an unstoppable tag team that would have drawn like crazy. Two talented, good-looking, athletic, charismatic enigmas, you know. I can't say enough good things about Brickhouse Brown. You know, again, I wanted to give you guys stuff that you didn't know about the guy. And I can't think of any enemies off the top of my head that Brick would have had in the locker room anywhere at any time. All right, again, today we honored Brickhouse Brown, wrestlers that you should know, black wrestlers that you should know, and us, Premier Pro Wrestling, PPW, and myself, recognizing Black History Month. You'll notice, again, there's no YouTube commercials on this. So please help us keep the doors open. Support PPW, Premier Pro Wrestling, on Patreon, Premier Pro Wrestling on Pivot Share, Premier Pro Wrestling Tees. Hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. He died at 58 years old, and I'll tell you, the world is a little bit worse without Brickhouse Brown.